Good afternoon, everyone. And Chris and Julian, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I'm just going to dive right in the interest of time. First and foremost, how did you two meet?
You want to take that?
No, I'll let you go ahead.
So I sent him a tweet.
You sent him a tweet.
I sent him a tweet. I'd seen an article on him in a magazine, and we decided to reach out as an organization. And the rest is history.
Can you corroborate this account?
Yes, I can. And Julian's very, very persuasive. It took about 30 seconds to find out about what Culture City was doing to say, yes, I want to be a part of it. And yeah.
So for the uninitiated here, tell us about what Culture City does.
So Culture City is what we like to call a social idea to functionally create a community of acceptance and inclusion for individuals with particularly invisible disabilities like autism, like PTSD. And it's an organization that was started 4 years ago, and in a very, very short time now is pretty much in about 200 different venues across the U.S., including multiple NBA arenas, NFL teams, aquariums, zoos, things of that nature. Yeah.
And Chris, how did you get involved?
Well, my son, CJ, was diagnosed with autism in 2007. And so from that moment on, you become a parent with a child who has autism. And your entire world becomes about how do you create environments in which they can, one, feel comfortable, and two, function in and be free to be themselves without being overwhelmed by his particular sensory issues. If things are too loud, if there are too many people, if there are too many bright colors or lights, throughout a space. All of those things you become really focused on, and how you can tailor fit an experience for him so that he feels free to function, quite literally. And so being on a Broadway stage is certainly not an area, in a Broadway theater is not something that is, usually can be something that he would be able to enjoy because of all of the elements that are at play. Being in Times Square, every venue you can imagine taking your child to, who has his particular set of issues, becomes something that you have to focus first and foremost. Otherwise you just don't participate in that particular thing. And so the challenge, as well as the work, is putting our energy into creating spaces that allow that are inclusive to people like my son, who may need to take a break, but then can go back and enjoy the rest of a baseball game or a concert or a zoo experience or any of those types of things.
And Julian, I believe you have a similar experience as a parent. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely. So I have a 10-year-old boy who's nonverbal, and it was kind of the impetus of, initiating this movement because, when we talk about inclusion and diversity, which is really kind of the hot topic right now, we talk about it from race, from religion, from sexual orientation, but we tend to leave out people of different abilities. And I think that's where we've really found our niche as an organization. Because organizations that have partnered with us to go through the training and open up their facilities to individuals with sensory needs have not only seen the positive ramifications from the social good aspect, but also seen it from the financial realm as well. And I think that's the beauty, because you are ministering to a population that by and large no one's ever really marketed to, and it is a growing population. It's 20% of the U.S. population today.
I believe for you were on a flight with management from the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Exactly.
Can you tell us a little bit about what was born from that discussion?
Yeah, so I was actually coming back from Collision 2 years ago, and I was sitting next to the former GM of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and we were just chatting about this initiative. And he had told us about a very negative experience that had happened in Cleveland during a game, and said whether we could help him with that. So that was really how that partnership started. And then fast forward about a year later, we're in 17 NBA teams.
And can you guys talk a little bit about the growth of Culture City since?
Yeah. Well, yesterday morning I was at Pocono Raceway. At a launch, they had built a playground and several sensory areas and rooms for their upcoming events this season. Few public or sporting events are as loud as a NASCAR event. And yet it's family-oriented. They're marketing to families. What I was saying yesterday is that, as a father of two, my wife and I can consider going to a place like that now, knowing that my son loves race cars. Why wouldn't I want to be able to take him to an event like that? Except that there's so many things happening. Just getting through the parking lot and the infield and then the actual race itself. All of those things he may enjoy immensely, but he may only be able to enjoy them 15 minutes at a time. And so being able to retreat into a quiet, safe space for a moment, reset, and then be able to come back out makes it more viable that we can, now include this as a possibility for an event that our son can take part in. It benefits the owners of these arenas and of these leagues to partner with organizations like Culture City, because now I can take that money that I was gonna, that I want to be able to put out as with our family. It puts that money in their hands because it also shows that they care about including all of us, and that's a really, really huge thing. For 13 years, we've been limited to the kinds of environments that we could be in because we just didn't know how he would react, or we didn't want to put him in a stressful situation.
Was your son able to watch you on Hamilton?
Yeah, but even then we had to find a space for him because he made it through the first act, okay, intermission. Halfway through the second act, it got too much for him, and he needed to step out and decompress a little bit. So that safe space happened to be my dressing room,
Right.
So.
Right.
Yeah.
So what is your call to action for the audience here? And is there a role for the tech sector in particular?
I think for sure, I think the biggest thing is to think about when you have a business or an idea, the last group you think of marketing to is individuals with disabilities. But it is a huge population that's growing and growing on a daily basis. So when you look at whatever industry you're in, if you're in a hotel industry or if you're in a service industry, think about this population, this huge 20% of the US population that you're not reaching out to. And by opening up your business idea to someone with a disability, you're not only going to reach that singular person, you're going to reach the entire social network. Right. And that in itself can help whatever business idea you have or the product that you're selling really get to that next level by doing that. Because you're in a space that no one's in. You really own that space if you decide to step into that. And, partnering with organizations like us just really help you kind of put one and one together so you can kind of figure out what product you're offering that might benefit this community and whether there's even a role in that. Yeah.
Is there any resistance that you've encountered? What is or is it just that people aren't thinking about it?
I think people aren't thinking about it. I think the initial resistance point was educating the general public. So once the NBA got on board, and it got on board in a big way, we had the NFL reach out. And NFL started saying, we don't want to miss the boat on this. We're seeing a huge market opportunity here, so we need to jump on board. And it's this really kind of steamroller effect. And every day we have new people reaching out. We were onboarding about 20 different locations on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. And it's not even venues now. It's restaurants, libraries, museums, all these different locations. Yeah.
Chris, you're obviously someone who's in a prominent position. You've lent your voice to this cause. Do you feel like there are others who are getting on board? Can you talk a little bit about your role in advocating and being a prominent activist for this cause?
Well, it's a very easy thing for me to talk about because as an artist, I'm constantly trying to collaborate with as many and connect with as many people as I can, not just in the artist community, but in the audience, in other artists that are doing different kinds of things. I love, connecting with visual artists. I love, professional or amateur or wherever they find themselves, on that line. For me, it's a very easy thing because I love my family and I love my son. And though I wish to God that he didn't have to deal with the struggles that he does, there's something really, really liberating as a parent to be out in the world and see another parent talking about a similar experience. When you start examining the idea that your child has a problem with something, you close ranks. You do your best to find out how you can treat this situation at its base where you live basically. But we get over because we share what we're going through, and it feels less distant, and you feel less isolated. And it allows you to kind of breathe a little bit. We see a lot of fundraising walks by other organizations that are associated with autism, and the huge fundraising efforts and the awareness that's growing and the walks that happen in cities all over the world. This is that same sort of feeling, but just on a different scale and in a different lane. But we spend half the time our conversations talking just about our kids, right? Because our experiences are very, very unique.
Right. Yeah. And to jump in on that, the stories that we get are really amazing. We've had stories of parents who basically, since the diagnosis of a child, have never gone out in public because they're afraid of how the public will react to their child. But now, because of these initiatives that we're enacting and the venues that we are changing, they're actually willing to step out in public now, understanding that they're not going to be reprimanded or forced to leave an establishment because that place has been trained. You know, I think we were talking in the back room earlier, and we were talking about with the NBA store in New York, where we made them the first sensory-inclusive retail store. We had a mom drive 45 miles to that store just to take her child shopping for the first time. An 18-year-old boy, never been to a retail store before because of sensory issues, not even a basketball fan, but going there just because that space had taken that next step to be welcoming.
That's incredible. I wanted that you each have a closing thought. What's next? What's next for Culture City? And also, what would you like people to take away when they walk out this door?
Well, Culture City is growing. You know, Julian mentioned it earlier, 20 new locations a day. If you multiply that awareness by the amount of staff at each of those locations that are receiving training, ongoing training, so that they see a family, not just in crisis, but they see a family who's there, who's got a sensory bag and it needs to know where things are. And it bridges the distance between not knowing at all and having an awareness and a knowledge-based awareness of how you can just be inclusive. It changes the entire paradigm for families and for you know, children and adults that are in need of some inclusion, in need of being in an environment where people get them, you know, or at least making the effort to get them. So, you know, what I always like to leave with anyone I speak to is that just be open. Just be open-minded, keep your eyes open, look for ways that you can include others into, you know, your level of understanding.
Yeah. A quick closing thought, Julian?
Yeah, just to echo that, yes, be open and think about your idea of how you want to succeed, why you're doing here, and think about opening up to this whole different population that you might never have thought about, because you're not going to really affect that one individual, you're going to affect the entire social network. And when you do that, it is functionally transformative. You know, real quick story, we had a 72-year-old gentleman who went through our training. He was really mad that he had to go through our training, but after he went through our training, he called us up and said, this was something life-changing for me. I never realized that I had a personal connection to this, and he became one of our biggest advocates in New York. And I think that's the key point. When you open up your heart to this, you never know who you're going to affect. And it will transform your own company and your business idea.
Oh, that's fantastic. You both are doing really great work, and we appreciate you sharing your story with us today. Chris and Julian, thank you once again, and thank you everyone for coming out.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.